In the heart of Tadoba, Maharashtra, lies a vast and wild jungle. It is a place where tigers rule and their roars echo through the trees. Among them there was a powerful tiger named Wagdo, who ruled the northern part of the park with unmatched strength. For years, Wagdo's dominance was unquestioned. He had conquered the land and driven out any competitors, making him the undisputed ruler of Tadoba. But in 2014, a new challenger appeared. His name was Bajrang. Unlike other tigers who roamed the park, Bajrang's presence was felt immediately. He was strong, swift, and fearless, a tiger with the potential to take on the mighty Wagdo. At first, Bajrang didn't seek conflict. He watched from the shadows, learning the land and understanding the ways of the wild. But the land he now walked was not one where a new tiger could simply wander. It was a place where power was held by the strongest, and Bajrang was determined. To prove himself, Bajrang didn't rush into battle. He waited, observing Wagdo's territory, waiting for the right moment to strike. The tiger was still young, and he needed to grow stronger. He spent his days hunting with precision, learning the ways of the forest, and gaining the strength needed to challenge the king of Tadoba. With each passing day, Bajrang grew, and the whispers of his strength began to spread throughout the park. By 2014, Bajrang was no longer just a shadow in the forest. He had become a force to be reckoned with. As his power grew, so did his ambition. Bajrang began marking his territory, slowly and methodically, inching closer to the land once ruled by Wagdo. The other tigers of Tadoba began to take notice, and soon it became clear that there was a new challenger for the crown. At first, Bajrang's presence was met with disbelief. How could this young, unknown tiger dare to challenge Wagdo? The idea seemed impossible. Wagdo was a seasoned fighter, a ruler with years of experience. But Bajrang wasn't afraid. He had trained for this moment, and he was ready to face the greatest challenge of his life. He wasn't just fighting for land. He was fighting for his legacy. The first encounter between Bajrang and Wagdo came when Bajrang crossed into the northern part of the park, where Wagdo's territory was most powerful. The two tigers came face to face, their eyes locking in a silent challenge. Wagdo, confident in his strength, let out a deep roar, signaling his dominance. Bajrang responded with a defiant growl, unwilling to back down. For a moment, neither tiger moved. The tension in the air was thick, and the entire jungle seemed to hold its breath. It was a fight not only for the land, but for the future of Tadoba. Bajrang knew that this battle would define him, and Wagdo knew that his reign was in jeopardy. But despite the intensity of the confrontation, the fight never came. Wagdo, perhaps sensing Bajrang's strength, decided to retreat. He would not engage in battle with this young upstart, at least not yet. Hey guys, it means a lot to me that you're here watching, and I'm excited to keep doing it for you. If you want to support me and help with my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Your support would mean a lot, and give me the motivation to continue on this adventure. As Bajrang walked deeper into the territory, marking his claim, it became clear that he was not just a challenger, he was a force that could change the course of Tadoba's future. As Bajrang claimed more territory and his presence grew stronger, it became clear that he was not just a passing shadow in Tadoba. He was here to stay. He continued to assert his dominance over the land, marking his boundaries and taking on every challenge that came his way. However, despite his growing strength, there were still those who doubted his ability to replace Wagdo as the ruler of the northern part of the park. In 2015, Bajrang's first real test came. Another tiger, Matkasur, entered the region, and his arrival brought further disruption to the delicate balance of power in Tadoba. Matkasur was powerful, and he too sought to claim his own territory in the park. The arrival of Matkasur created a three-way struggle for dominance between Bajrang, Wagdo, and Matkasur. For Bajrang, this was an opportunity. He knew that Matkasur's arrival could weaken Wagdo's control over the park, and it would provide the perfect opening for him to step into the role of king. Bajrang carefully observed the movements of both tigers, and while the three-way battle raged on, Bajrang waited for the right moment to strike. the power struggle continued, with Bajrang facing off against both Matkasur and Wagdo in subtle ways. However, despite the constant challenges, Bajrang never wavered. He proved his strength and skill, winning battles when necessary and continuing to build his influence. Slowly but surely, the tigers of Tadoba began to see Bajrang as the new force in the park. While Bajrang may have passed from this world, his legacy as the invincible king of Tadoba would live on forever. His reign, marked by triumphs and struggles, had shaped the very fabric of Tadoba's wildlife. The jungle had lost its king, but the spirit of Bajrang, the mighty tiger, would never fade. Bajrang's death, though a painful loss for the forest, marked the beginning of a new chapter in Tadoba. His legacy was not merely in his offspring, but in the lessons learned through his reign. His rule had brought peace and stability to the park for many years, and though the challenges were great, Bajrang had always been a protector of the land. His strength and intelligence had allowed him to maintain control over his vast territory, ensuring the survival of countless animals in the park. After his death, the tiger kingdom in Tadoba was left in a state of flux. While Bajrang's cubs were strong, they had yet to reach their full potential. The struggle for leadership grew fiercer as the younger tigers sought to claim the throne left vacant by Bajrang's passing. Rudra and Tala, now fully grown, emerged as the new contenders for supremacy. However, none could claim the throne outright, for Bajrang's reign had been so vast that his influence stretched beyond just his bloodline. The land itself seemed to mourn the loss of its king, and in the absence of clear leadership, the ecosystem began to shift. The predators and prey alike could feel the tension in the air. The once calm jungle now faced the uncertainty of new rulers, and the jungle was waiting for the rightful king to rise. Bajrang's influence continued to reverberate throughout Tadoba despite his death. His cubs, though young, began to show signs of leadership. Some took to the northern parts of the park where Bajrang had ruled, while others ventured toward different territories. It wasn't long before the jungle witnessed the gradual ascent of Bajrang's offspring, proving that his legacy had been carefully passed down. Though the older tigers, like Rudra and Tala, still posed a significant threat, it was clear that Bajrang's bloodline would eventually reclaim the throne. The new generation of tigers had been shaped by Bajrang's courage, skill, and leadership, and they were ready to defend their father's legacy. But the road to power was not easy. The battle for control was long and hard. The young tigers had to face not only their own struggles, but also the constant threat from external predators and the ever-changing landscape of Tadoba. The fights for dominance were intense, but Bajrang's legacy lived on in each of them, pushing them to become the rulers their father had been. Years passed, and the once chaotic jungle began to settle into a new balance. The younger tigers, those born from Bajrang and his queens, established themselves as formidable rulers in their own right. Though none were quite like Bajrang, they held on to his values, respecting the land and maintaining order. The jungle, though forever changed by his death, had found its new equilibrium. However, a shadow still lingered over the jungle. Bajrang's final battle with his rival, Chota Matka, had left its mark on the land, and the scars of that battle were still fresh in the minds of the tigers who had witnessed it. Matka, once a challenger, had risen to become a leader in his own right, and his influence over Tadoba could not be ignored. The forest, still haunted by the echoes of Bajrang's reign, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the true successor to rise. It was clear that while Bajrang's direct line had brought stability, the jungle was now a place of competition where only the strongest could truly rule. The new generation of tigers, while strong and capable, were not invincible. They had learned much from Bajrang, but the challenges they faced were unlike those of their father. The threats to their rule came not only from rival tigers, but also from the growing presence of human intervention. The park itself was beginning to see more tourists and with them, new dangers for the animals that roamed it. Despite these challenges, Bajrang's descendants stood firm. They defended their territories and their families with fierce determination, remembering the lessons Bajrang had taught them. The jungle may have lost its king, but it had not lost its spirit. Bajrang had been more than just a ruler. He had been a symbol of resilience, and that resilience continued to live on in his children. The challenges they faced were great, but the blood of Bajrang flowed through their veins, and it was that strength that would carry them forward. Tadoba was still the kingdom of tigers, and Bajrang's legacy would ensure that the land would remain in their hands for generations to come. In 2016, Bajrang faced the ultimate challenge when he came up against Wagdo in a direct confrontation. Wagdo, though older and weaker, still held the title of king. The two tigers met in a fierce battle, each one fighting for control of the land. Bajrang, now stronger and more experienced, fought with all his might, using the skills he had honed over the years. The battle was long and brutal. Bajrang and Wagdo clashed with tremendous force, each one trying to overpower the other. But it was Bajrang who emerged victorious. With a final roar, he drove Wagdo from the northern part of Tadoba, marking the beginning of his reign as the new king of the park. The victory was hard-won, but it solidified Bajrang's place as the ruler of Tadoba. He had proven himself against the most powerful tiger in the park, and now the land was his. Bajrang's rule was marked by peace and prosperity. He established a vast territory that stretched over 150 square kilometers, a domain that no other tiger had ever dared to claim. But with power came responsibility. Bajrang knew that he had to protect his territory and ensure that the balance of power remained in his favor. As time passed, he encountered new challenges. Other tigers, such as Rudra and Tala, emerged as potential threats to his reign. But Bajrang, now a seasoned warrior, was ready for whatever came his way. As the years passed, Bajrang's strength began to show signs of wear. His once mighty body, which had allowed him to conquer vast territories, started to feel the effects of age. But even as time took its toll, Bajrang's presence in Tadoba was undeniable. He had become a symbol of power and resilience, a living legend among the other tigers. His territory remained vast, and his influence stretched far and wide, but Bajrang knew that the days of endless dominance were slowly slipping away. In 2019, new challenges began to surface. Two young tigers, Rudra and Tala, began to grow stronger and more ambitious. They were not as experienced as Bajrang, but their power and drive posed a serious threat to his rule. Rudra, a fierce and determined tiger, began encroaching on Bajrang's territory, while Tala, another powerful rival, started to challenge Bajrang's leadership directly. Bajrang, now aging and weakened by the years, was forced to confront these new challenges. The battles were fierce, and Bajrang fought valiantly, but his age and strength were no longer what they once had been. He managed to defeat Tala in a brutal encounter, but the scars of battle were becoming more evident. Bajrang was not the invincible tiger he once was, and the jungle began to whisper that his reign was nearing its end. As Bajrang grew older, the balance of power in Tadoba began to shift. His once uncontested rule over the park started to fracture. The young tigers, emboldened by Bajrang's weakened state, began to seize parts of his vast territory. Rudra and Tala, who had once been mere threats, were now becoming real contenders for the throne. The old tiger knew that his time was running out. His body, battered from years of fierce battles, was no longer as strong as it used to be. He had become a shadow of his former self, but still his presence commanded respect. His roar, though not as powerful as before, still echoed through the forest, a reminder to all who heard it that he had once been the king of Tadoba. In 2023, Bajrang's health deteriorated further. His once proud stature became frail, and he could no longer defend his territory as he once had. He retreated to a quieter part of the park, far from the constant battles and challenges of his youth. But the jungle never forgets, and Bajrang's legacy continued to linger in the winds that blew through Tadoba's trees. It was in November of that year that the news came. A tiger's body was found near the northern part of the park. It didn't take long for the forest department to confirm the identity of the fallen tiger. It was Bajrang, the invincible king of Tadoba. Bajrang's death was a shock to the entire park. He had been the heart of Tadoba for so many years, and his passing marked the end of an era. However, Bajrang's legacy did not die with him. His descendants, the offspring he had sired during his reign, still roamed the park. More than 50 cubs, each one a testament to Bajrang's strength and leadership, now carried on his bloodline. His name continued to live on through them as they grew into the new generation of rulers. Bajrang's final battle may have been his most significant. Though he was no longer physically able to defend his vast territory, his spirit and influence still held sway over the park. The young tigers who challenged him in his final years learned from him, whether they knew it or not. His courage, his strength and his tenacity were lessons that would guide the future rulers of Tadoba. As the years passed, Bajrang's descendants continued to thrive in Tadoba, each one learning from their father's legacy. Though no single tiger would ever be able to match Bajrang's immense power, the jungle had learned to adapt. New leaders rose, but Bajrang's influence remained the foundation upon which the kingdom of tigers stood. The land itself, the rivers, and the trees that had once felt Bajrang's mighty presence still felt the imprint of his reign. His roar may have faded, but the echoes remained, resonating through the generations of tigers that followed. Tadoba was no longer just a park. It was a living testament to the legacy of a tiger who had once ruled it with unmatched strength, courage, and wisdom. Though Bajrang had passed, his story would live on, inspiring future generations of tigers to rise, to fight, and to rule. The invincible king may have been gone, but his spirit would forever guide the jungle of Tadoba,